Active learning and the role that AI plays within active learning, specifically within the online environment, has given us so many advantages, and it helps us to create sticky learning, durable learning, learning that actually sticks because it does things within our brains that help that content stick. We know that active learning works better to create durable learning within all of us. It simply works better. Studies have shown this time after time. It's been proven. But we also know from those same studies that oftentimes students feel that they're not learning as much and that they're struggling even more when they're trying to learn. And there's some reasons why that's happening. So let's jump in, take a deeper dive into how all of this is affecting our mind and how AI can help us create this active learning that works with inside our own brains to create that durable learning so we can use this knowledge to solve complex issues with our creative and critical thinking. And keep in mind that this is an extremely oversimplified view of how things happen within the brain. We just want to kind of establish sort of a pathway. If you want to dive really deeply into the inner workings of the brain, you want to contact or connect with a neuroscientist or take some courses on neuroscience that can really pinpoint what exactly is happening and how it's happening to quite often the cellular level. And once we sense that content, we have to make a stop somewhere. And that first stop is known as our sensory cortices. And there's specialized regions in the brain that receive and process the sensory information. So, for example, when we see something, it goes to the visual cortex. When we hear something, it goes to the auditory cortex. When we touch or feel something, it goes to the somatosensory cortex. So it goes to these cortices for further processing. So when we encounter new content, such as reading a text, listening to a lecture, or observing a demonstration, our sensory cortices are responsible for that initial encoding of that information into neural signals. So this encoding is crucial as it forms a foundation for further processing and integration of the content into our existing knowledge network. So that's really the critical part, existing knowledge networks. So if we can open up those existing knowledge networks first, guess what we can do? We can make it easier to learn. So what does it matter that we can use artificial intelligence and active learning for that first sensory piece, for that information to go to our cortices? Well, we have opportunities now that we simply didn't have before utilizing artificial intelligence within online classrooms, because it was very passive learning that first time, right? It was basically just watching a video or hearing something. But now we can go back and forth. So think from the perspective of just having a course assistant where you can have a debate with, or you can do a think, pair, share. You're doing a whole lot with that content. Now, you're not just taking it in, you are interacting with that content. So that's opening up a whole new level of learning that we can achieve. So now let's follow that piece of content, that knowledge, out of the cortices. Continue to think of yourself as this piece of knowledge, this piece of content, and you just hit one of the cortices, visual, audio, somatosensory, or any of the others, and you are further encoded, and now you are a signal being sent to that prefrontal cortex. That is the command center of the brain. That's where, when you think prefrontal cortex, think decision making and things of that nature. So here we can utilize active learning to really captivate our attention, stimulate curiosity, which is hugely important because of the next stop in our brain, and we can foster deeper engagement. So as that piece of content, you're actually going to witness neurons firing with intensity as the brain grapples with these new concepts, and they're creating new connections with existing knowledge. Now remember, I said curiosity is a big deal, because the next step from that prefrontal cortex, we're going to go over to the amygdala, and that's where we see emotion and motivation. So curiosity is an emotion. So if we can engage that curiosity with our active learning, guess what? Better opportunity for that content to stick. So active learning really infuses our lessons with relevance and meaning, and that triggers that surge of positive emotions. And the stronger the emotion, guess what? The stronger the learning. So you feel empowered and invested and enthusiastic. So you just get all these neurotransmitters. So as that piece of content knowledge, you see all these neurotransmitters just amplifying what you just learned. We've been through a lot of parts of the brain as that little piece of content going everywhere, but we haven't even touched on the hippocampus or the cerebellum. So let's touch on the hippocampus, because that's where we're going to encode those memories. And notice encoding has been a piece all along everything that we talked about. We want to encode. And active learning, we can do that. That helps us to encode content. So the hippocampus is where we create these memories. The hippocampus is where learning and memories are formed. And now we can start thinking about the recall of this memory. And another important thing about the hippocampus is that it is the place where we create contextual memories, contextual learning. So never learn anything in isolation. So if you were ever in school where you just learned one thing in isolation, which we do a lot of, that's really a poor way of learning. You want to learn within the context of everything that's happening. So active learning actually requires us to do that, because we have to take into perspective all these other things that are happening. So that's why in our online classroom, if we do something as simple as a debate or a think, pair, share, we have to think of the context of the issue as well. So whether you're building the newest AI thing, you have to think of the context that you're building that within. And when it comes to learning, you have to think of the context that learning fits within, because when we know the context, we're more easily able to connect it to those previous networks that we've created within our brain. And if you circle back a few minutes in this video, you'll know that those networks are what help us encode and bring that new content in to help make it stick. So what will you do with this new knowledge that you have? You know the reason that active learning and artificial intelligence works within the brain, because we went through all the encoding pieces, all the parts of the brain, and how it can amplify even emotion, that emotion of curiosity. If we do it well, it can do all sorts of other things to help us create that pathway much quicker for that automatic recall, because when we can recall something quickly, and without a lot of effort, we can use it in creative ways to solve complex issues. So the question that still remains, though, is, remember in the beginning of the video, we said that students often feel that they're not getting as much from the active learning process. So how can we get that information across? Is it simply a matter of letting them know and kind of telling them how it works? Or what's your thought about that? How can we help people understand that active learning works better, even though it may feel like you're not getting as much? What are your thoughts?